Now opening up Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Fairfield, February 3, 2022. Our hearing, we have some preliminary matters for our agenda, and that is our executive session matters, approval of the minutes of the Thursday, January 6, 2022 meeting. Entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Jane seconds.
Thank you, Jane. Is there any discussion?
No.
Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll bring it to a vote. The board members, since I can see you all, you can raise your hand if you're in favor. I see all hands raised. So therefore, I don't even have to ask if there's anyone opposed or abstentions because that motion carries and it's approved for the minutes. Next is approval of secretaries' fees. Entertain a motion to approve those fees.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Katie. Seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Having no discussion, the board members can raise their hands so I can see. Terry, Mr. Keegan, drinking with something doesn't count as raising your hand of voting. So now you raised your hand. Okay, thank you. Since everyone voted in favor, I don't have to ask if there's any opposed or abstentions. That motion is carried. I will call to order our public hearing in a moment, but we'll reconvene our working session after the public hearing to vote on each matter. And I'll say it again, but anyone who's interested is welcome to stay for that, as you can hear discussion on each matter that does go forward today. And just a reminder, we have a few items. Number 7 on the continued docket, 250 Pequot Avenue. That's continued to March. Number 8 on our regular docket, which is 5545 Park Avenue. That has been withdrawn, that application. And number 9, the 1088 Harbor Road application. That is going to be continued to March as well. Okay. And I saw Miss Cavalier, I think, signed in. I think I saw, yes. You don't have to unmute yourself yet. Stay muted. I'm going to make the call. I just wanted to see if our first bit of business was on the call, so I didn't rush things. Now I'm going to call to order Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Fairfield, February 3, 2022. When I call a matter, I'm calling it what that means is I'm referring and restating what's on our agenda, on our docket. And when I call that, the person who's applying or the agent, if it's someone that you've hired or asked to present your application, that person will then present their case. The board has your documents that you've submitted, so we have that for review. If you want to share something during your presentation, you are welcome to do that as long as you have the capability. If you are sharing something, please take it down and unshare. Stop sharing when you're done talking about that. That's just a personal request from me as the chairman, because I like to be able to see who's on my screen, because people may try to get a hold of me. And when people share, I only see a few of the people on the side of my computer. So when you're done talking about something that you're sharing, please remove it. And that would be very helpful. Only one person can speak at a time. So unless you're talking and answering our questions, you are to be muted. All right. After the person that has presented, the applicant, whether it's the owner of the property or their agent, I will then ask if there's anyone that has a comment on that particular application, whether you are in favor or you're against it. All I want you to do at that point is to unmute yourself and wait for me to call you. Raise your hand to give me some notification, and I will take your name, and I would take whether you are in favor of it and or whether you are opposed to it. That's all I want to hear at that point, because I take them in a particular order. I first ask that for people that are in favor of the application to speak. I will then ask anyone that is opposed to it, and I will take you in that order. So I will introduce you. I'm going to be writing down your names, and I'll say, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, you had a comment in favor of this. Please give us your comment. I'll go through those people, and then I'll take the people that may be opposed to it. If there is any opposition, I will then allow the applicant or his or her agent an opportunity to address those comments in opposition. At that point, I know the lawyers that are on the call, they understand this very well. They do a great job, but sometimes the people that don't have that legal training, they start to restate their entire application. That's not a time to restate all the reason. It is a time for you to address the comments that are in opposition to your application. All right, so try to your best. I'm not looking for perfection, but I want you to try your best to keep on point as to the issues so the meeting runs smoothly, especially since we're doing it remote. If you're too far off the point, I reserve my right as chairman to restrict your comments at any time. So I ask that you address the comments that relate to the Zoning Board of Appeals and the particular request as to what the applicant is seeking as a variance. The meeting's being taped, and that's required by state law because we will have to have a record available if anyone wants to find out what was said and what our decision was. So we need to be clear on the record because it's important that if someone has an issue with it and they go to court, we want the record to be very clear, and we want the judges and the lawyers that are handling it and reviewing that to understand what happened today. So only one person can speak at a time, and that's why I take my time going through and making sure I give people an opportunity to speak. And I also ask, and I may ask and remind a couple times for you to make sure that you're on mute so everything can be understood. If you have any comments, introduce yourself, give your name. When you start speaking, if you're answering a question, it'd be helpful if you give your name. It'll make the record clear that way, so we know who's speaking. If you need, some time to think about something, let me know on that. I'm not going to rush you, but do your best to get all your points out, and that would be helpful. Anyone who's interested in this, you can remain in attendance until afterwards, because after we go through the public hearing, if we don't have a long docket, so we probably don't need to take a break. But if it goes longer than expected, we'll take a short break. We'll reconvene our working session, and at that time, we'll be discussing each matter that goes forward today for a hearing. Well, once we're done, I close the hearing on that particular matter, and we'll be voting on anything that's closed today. There are 5 voting members for the Zoning Board of Appeals. For your application to be granted, you're going to need a supermajority. You need at least 4 people to vote in favor of it. I think it's very helpful for people that are interested to stay and listen because there's a discussion. Sometimes there's not much, but sometimes there's a lot of discussion. And when there's a lot of discussion, I think it's very helpful for the applicant or anyone who's interested in that to hear what the discussion is so they can understand or may have at least an understanding as to why our decision turned out the way it did. If an application for waiver is granted, it's not going to be valid until it is recorded in a land record. So you must bring or send a check for $60 made out to the town of Fairfield Wednesday or later following the meeting for proper recording. You can send that to the zoning office. If you can't stay during the working session, you can contact zoning office tomorrow to find out what happened. Any waiver involving construction will require an as-built prior to issuance of zoning compliance and a certificate of occupancy. So I'm going to call the docket now. I'm going to be repetitive on some of the things that I said were continued, but I'm creating a record, so I have to do that. Continued docket number 7, 250 Pequot Avenue. That matter has been continued to March. General docket number 1, 401 Springer Road, map 121, parcel 27N as in Nancy. Petition of Deborah Cavalier for a variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the side setback and front line setback from 25 feet and 50 feet, proposing 15.7 feet and 32 feet, and section 5.2.5 to increase lot coverage from 10%, currently 8.52%, proposing 10.85%. Permission to construct a 1.5-story, 1-car detached garage with storage above premises, AA zone. Ms. Cavalier, go ahead.
Hi, good day, Chairman and the board. My name is Deborah Cavalier, and I live at 401 Springer Road in Fairfield. I'm seeking a variance for a one-story garage and a studio with a small attic space. I'm asking for a small increase in lot coverage due to an undersized lot. It will be a 270 square foot garage with a 360 square foot artist studio with an attic space for my art supplies. This is an undersized, legal, non-conforming lot, and I am in compliance with both my neighbor's line of sight. All the plans combine to the setbacks of the floor area. Currently, I only have a one-car garage that's very difficult to move through. It's a deck house, and I would like to continue my work in my new home that I've moved here, and I'm applying for this variance, and it's been a long road ahead because we've tried to locate the buildings on different areas of the properties, and we found that this is going to be the best way. I spoke to the Purdy's who are on the side of me, and they are happy with the design that we made because it does not lose their sight of their view into my property from their side windows. So we are finally agreed upon that after long discussions.
Thank you, Ms. Cavalier. Does the board have any questions? Yes, Jane, I'm sorry, I was looking down. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm confused. You are looking for a variance for the side setback as well, right?
It's for the side setback on the northeast side of my property.
Right, and
So
so currently there's no building there at all. It's just the driveway.
yes, it's just the driveway, and then it just has ledge, and it just kind of goes, it's just like an empty, ugly spot of nothing. So I just want to put a garage over there just to fill up that area. So when you drive down the driveway, you'll see a garage. It'll be presented a little bit nicer as well.
Okay, I'm looking at your explanation of hardship. Can you reiterate that and according to what we need to evaluate it by, how it's condition of the property?
The condition of the property, it's kind of interesting because I heard this was the first house built on this property before they started building the other houses, and it's the house, the property is a smaller lot size, and I only have a one-car garage, so it's very difficult to be able to get in and out of that garage the way that the driveway is made. So the easiest way for me to pull into a garage and in the unit is just to go straight down the driveway and go straight back up. It's very difficult to make a turn in the driveway because it's a small circle. It's a small, like, little square area.
So the way you have this building situated, you can pull in and then back out, turn around and drive out straight? Is that what your goal
Yep.
is?
Yeah, so it's just straight up and down the driveway and
Yeah.
instead of trying to make a little turn.
Okay, but you only want a one-car garage.
It's a one-car garage. Yeah, I wanted a two-car garage, but after, many meetings with my neighbors, they said they would allow me to do a one-car garage with a studio. And the studio is really the most important part. So it's just going to be something so I could, keep my small car in and my bikes. And then I'll have my little back area where I could do my work in my studio and a little attic space to keep some storage in it.
I don't know if this is too far afield, but what's your medium that you do your work?
I do mixed medium, so I marry my photographs with found objects.
I see. Okay, that's it for questions.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor or against this application? Please unmute and give me your name and the type of position, whether you're in favor or against.
I don't see anyone, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I should note for the record that the SIDWA 377, they sent us an email that they are withdrawing what their previous support, and that is part of our record as well. Okay. All right,
Chairman,
so
can I make a statement on that?
who is that?
This is Deborah Cavalier.
Yes, Ms. Cavalier, since there is something that came in afterwards, I will let you make a statement as to their withdrawal of the prior signature.
Right. So what originally happened is I was trying to do the garage over by the Purdy's house, and they didn't want to have anything big, so we had to have many discussions. So what we ended up deciding to do is legally I could put a garage in the front of my house near the SID was, and I was able to do a studio at the end of my driveway. And that was approved last year. And then after looking into it, I was like, I don't want an ugly garage in front of my house, and it's going to be very costly. So I decided to not even do that and to just speak to the Purdy's to try to at least give me some sort of space. So what I've tried to do is just do a smaller garage and a smaller studio so I could do it in one area and it could be economical, feasible, and it will also be in compliance with my neighbors and my site. So the Edwards will not even see this property, this building, because it's on the right side. And just for the records, the only way they could have seen that old building is if they were sitting in their guest bathroom looking at their 3-inch by 10-inch by 10-foot window. It was a silly thing. But like I said, this new variance has nothing to do with them because they can't see it. It's on the total opposite of their property.
Yes, your map that you filed, Ms. Cavalier, reflects that the garage is over on the other side. The
Right.
garage is where the driveway is, so.
Right, which they'd have no view of seeing it, but they didn't want to listen to me when I tried to explain it to me. They just wanted to shut the door in my face.
Well, that's, okay, you don't need to go that far.
Okay.
All right, that's it for the comments. I'm going to close the hearing on 401 Springer Road, and we'll take that up at the conclusion. Thank you. Our next item, number 2, 163 Oakfield Road, map 182, parcel 219, petition of Phoenix Surgicals LLC for a variance of zoning regulations, section 12.7.6.2, to reduce the side setback from 10 feet, currently 1.2 feet, proposing 1.2 feet, and section 12.6.2 to reduce the required parking spaces from 3, proposing 1, permission to renovate an existing garage and construct a second floor addition premises NDD zone. Attorney Fitzpatrick, is this you, sir?
This is my file, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, my name is Bill Fitzpatrick. I'm an attorney in Fairfield with the law firm of Fitzpatrick, Cray, and Bologna, with offices at 1735 Post Road. I'm here this afternoon representing Phoenix Surgicals LLC, the owner of the office building located at the corner of Oldfield Road and Reef Road. This property is located in the Neighborhood Design Business District, contains 10,067 square feet. There is no minimum lot area requirement in the Neighborhood Design Business District. This property was converted from a daycare use to an office use in 1985. At that time, there was no garage on the premises. Subsequently, in 2001, the owner of the property received a zoning compliance approval for construction of a garage on the premises to the rear of the office building, to the south, if you will. The purpose of the garage was for the parking of the building owner's vehicle. The approval included the construction of the building at a 0 setback from the southerly property line, as is permitted under the zoning regulations. Specifically, the regulation permits a 0 setback or a minimum of a 10-foot setback. The intent of this applicant is to add a second floor office comprising 600 square feet as part of the renovation of the existing garage. To that end, the applicant is requesting a variance of section 12.7.6.2 of the zoning regulations to permit a reduction in the side property line setback from 10 feet, presently 1.2 feet, to 1.2 feet, and a variance of section 12.6.2 to permit a reduction in required parking from 3 spaces to 1 space in conjunction with the renovation of an existing garage and the addition of a second floor office. Mr. Chairman, as you've heard from me in the past, The legal test for the granting of a variance is set forth in the Adolphson case, 207 Connecticut 703, a 1998 case which states, quote, regarding hardship under general statute section 8-6, parents C and parents, a local zoning board may grant a variance where two basic conditions are met. One, the variance is shown not to affect substantially the comprehensive zoning plan. And two, adherence to the strict letter of the zoning regulations is shown to cause unusual hardship, unnecessary to the carrying out of the general purpose of the zoning plan, end quote. First part of the test, no substantial effect on the comprehensive plan is satisfied here where the proposed use and office use is a permitted use in the neighborhood design business district. Indeed, the use is consistent with the existing office building on site. The second part of the test, adherence to the strict letter of the zoning regulations is shown to cause unusual hardship, unnecessary to the carrying out of the purpose of the zoning plan, is satisfied here, I would submit, by several factors. The first variance requested is a reduction in the side property line setback from 10 feet, presently 1.2 feet, to 1.2 feet. This variance request is essentially technical in nature since the relevant regulation, 12.6.2, permits a side property line setback of either 0 feet or not less than 10 feet. The original compliance approval in 2001 included construction of the garage with a 0 side property line setback. But as is often the case, in an effort to ensure the garage was located on the proper property, the garage was actually constructed 1.2 feet from the side property line. If the garage had been constructed at 0 feet, there would be no need for a variance request because the addition of a second floor would be permitted. It should be noted that the proposed second floor of the garage will be located at the same distance from the property line, same footprint, no construction any closer to a neighboring property owner, and as such, no negative impact on any neighboring property owner. The second variance request is to reduce the required parking for the proposed second floor from 3 spaces to 1 space. The 1 space provided is in the garage itself. The important factor for the board to take into account in evaluating this request is the fact that this office will be occupied by the building owner. His owner is presently located in the office building. His intent is to create a separate, more private office located on the second floor of the renovated garage. He will use the first floor garage area for parking his vehicle. Any visitor to his office can utilize the parking space in front of the garage. Pictures of the parking area surrounding the existing office building were submitted with this application. They were taken on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 in the morning, 2:30 in the afternoon for a period of several months last fall. These photographs show there's always parking available on site. As such, the purpose and intent of the zoning regulation is satisfied here because there is parking available. I think the board can also take into account the fact that the pandemic has led a significant number of office workers and companies to realize that any number of people, both executives and workers, can work from home, and that this is likely to be the case going forward. There's no reason to believe that the availability of parking on site will do anything but increase. There is also available on-street parking on Old Field Road. And lastly, please note that the parking reduction is 2 spaces, which, given the demonstrated availability of parking, is, I would submit, a de minimis request. This property is not overbuilt since the neighborhood design business district permits a building coverage of 75%. The building coverage proposed here is less than 1/3 of that at 21.1%. Similarly, the regs permit a 100% floor area ratio. Total floor area ratio here with the second floor garage office in place is less than half that at 40.38%. Approval of this application permits the construction of an office for the property owner on the second floor of the renovated garage on the existing garage footprint, with no new construction any closer to a neighboring property owner than at present, on a site with a demonstrated availability of parking. My client also owns the property to the south, and he, the most affected neighbor of any, has no objection to the approval of this application. My client, Mark Howard, is on this call, as is the project architect, Mr. Dominic Cartelli. And they and I will be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Attorney Fitzpatrick. Does the board have any questions for Attorney Fitzpatrick or his consultants and the owner? Jane, go ahead, then Brian.
I'm a little confused. This is all one property. The existing office building and the surrounding parking lot is all part of the same property?
Yes,
So how many parking spaces are there on the property total now? And why isn't that all counted in the calculations?
because the parking for the existing office building was approved under the 1985 regulations, which
Yeah.
is different than the parking regulations today. And it was, for instance, now it's one for every 250 square feet of gross space for office. At that point, first floor was parking at 180 square feet per space. The second floor was parking at 300 square feet. Rather than try to do that math now, I made the assumption, as is the case since the building received the CO, that it had adequate parking, and I just dealt with the additional parking for the garage alone.
So I'm still confused. So according to current regulations, are there enough parking spaces for the office building itself? Or are there more
My
than
calculations, yes.
Are there are there extra?
I think it's pretty much on the nose.
Okay.
They permitted tandem spaces, for instance,
Right,
on that side of the building, on the easterly side of the
right. I
building.
see that there.
That's why
Okay,
I didn't go down this rabbit's hole, because
Okay.
there were different regs, and there were different regs relative to spaces at that point in time.
okay. If the new proposed office has a different tenant someday, that will also require 3 parking spaces. Then they're going to have to rely on the existing parking again in the rest of the parking lot, right?
Well,
In other words, it's going to go forever, even when the current owner doesn't have
the
that
variance
anymore.
runs with the property, not with the
Yeah,
owner. That's
Right,
true.
okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Brian, you had a question?
Council, you've heard this from me a couple of times. This isn't affecting any handicap space count, correct?
It does not.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, no other questions. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this application, 163 Oldfield Road? Whether you are in favor or against, please give me your name and your position in that regard. All right, hearing no comments, I'm going to close the hearing on 163 Oldfield Road. Thank you, Attorney Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Our next item that we have is 6 Borowski Road, map 77, parcel 490, petition of 6 Borowski Drive, LLC, for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4.2, to reduce the street line setback for an unenclosed structure on a corner lot from 17 feet, currently 9.1 feet, proposing 6.5 feet, permission to allow an existing set of stairs off an open front porch premises. B-zone is Mr. Papa George presenting that? I saw from the application, or someone else? Go ahead, Mr. Papa George.
Thank you. I will be presenting. My name is Lucas Papa George. I'm the managing member of 6 Borowski Drive LLC. I also own a general contracting company. And thank you guys for being here today and hearing our application. We have a fully approved existing non-conforming building that we had a subdivision on. And we turned the building from Black Rock Turnpike side to the Borowski Road side where the front is. As you said, you're allowed to go 8 foot into a approved setback with an open porch. we have a existing structure that was actually built at 14 feet. That structure is over 100 years old. And we did put the porch on, and we came 7.7 feet into that setback. Being unaware, when we did our application, you guys approved the lot coverage, and then we went to get our subdivision. And within the subdivision, the engineering department requested us to move the driveway further down Borosky Road. And they also requested us to add a sidewalk. So doing that, we redesigned our proposed, we submitted that with our subdivision, and we got a building permit and worked through and built the building. Coming back at the to get our CO on the structure, it was revealed that our assumption, I guess I would say, was that we were allowed, since we were allowed the 14 foot as existing non-construction, as we read through, I'll give you exact, as we read through the zoning requirement, is permitted to reconstruction of the home as designed, construction use. In section 5.2.4.2, for a ground floor unenclosed porch may extend into the area required for setback to the street line 8 foot, and this is in B zone. Being that our 14-foot setback was already approved as existing non-construction, was our assumption, and porch shall be approved to extend into that by 8 feet, which we did 7.7 to make sure we didn't hit the mark. As it's written, the regulation does not differentiate between the allowed spec in 5.2, which says the 17 minus 8, or the 17 feet, or whether it's a prescribed allowance. So we felt as we designed it and as we went through the process that we would be allowed to come 8 foot off of our 14-foot setback. We find out now that that doesn't seem to be the case, even though we still kind of interpret it that way. So long story short, we have the structure, it's built that way. We have buyers that are very happy to be moving into the house. We remodeled a 100-year-old house. I feel like we kept it to the nature of the neighborhood. We didn't go too large. We didn't push the envelope really on any zoning requirements here. We had that misinterpretation, and by moving the driveway and putting the sidewalk, the slope of the lot and the slope of the sidewalk, I sent some pictures in for the board. You could kind of see the sidewalk's not allowed to have any grading, from street to house. So it's got to be perfectly level. So to raise the difference, we needed to put a couple extra steps there. We also needed to have the driveway be a little steeper and in according to the engineering department. So by all those factors, we have the steps there, and they protrude in 7 points. They're into 7.7, which is only requested a 6.5 feet be allowed from the street line to the front porch, minus the first step, which is under 12 inches per code. That doesn't count. I've been building in Connecticut or Fairfield for 20 years. This is the first time I've come here with a application that was post building. So this is not a habit of ours. This is not where we choose to be today. We've had a couple applications pre-construction on non-conforming lots that needed second floors and stuff, but we try and build and keep existing houses, and that's what we did here. I have full neighborhood support, which when you do a subdivision and you're doing construction on people's street, they're usually not as happy with you. So the fact that we have full neighborhood support here, we're good neighbors and we try to be, and everybody this doesn't really hardship to any neighbors because it's on the front of the house to the town street. We own the property next door, but we also got the next property across the street behind us. And we talked to many other neighbors. So with that, I'm going to leave it there. Unless there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Papa George. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Papa George? All right, hearing no questions. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this application at 6 Boroski Road? Whether you're in favor or against, please give me your name and the position that you have. Okay, I'm going to close the hearing on 6 Boroski Road. Thank you, Mr. Papa George. We'll be taking that up shortly. Our next item that we have is number 486 French Street. Map 238, parcel 71, petition of Kathleen and Andrew Weil for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 11.11.2 and 11.15 to reduce the 2 street line and 1 sideline setbacks from 15 feet, 15 feet, and 5 feet. Currently 2.7 feet, 10.6 feet, and 13 feet, proposing 5.3 feet, 10.9 feet, and 1.5 feet for an open mechanical platform, and section 11.10 to increase the lot coverage from 20%, currently 39.3%, proposing 49%, permission to construct a FEMA compliant 2-story single-family dwelling with open porches and balconies premises BD zone. And who is presenting this? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Weil.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Weil. And thank you for hearing our appeal for the variance at 86 Front Street. The property is a non-conforming lot, 2,250 square feet, with a 102-year-old dilapidated cottage on it. We're asking for a variance to the setbacks from both streets. While lower than the zoned regulations, they are set further back than the existing structure. On the side yard, we're looking to build a narrow platform for access to the electric utility box, which is required by UI. In addition, we're asking to add less than 100 square feet, it's 4 feet from the house, but the width of the house, over the driveway, which is why we're requesting the variance to the right-of-way side of the house. We're planning to build a home that represents an aesthetic enhancement to the property for all that may pass when they turn left on South Pine Creek. And at this point, William Levy, our architect, is on the call, and I'd like him to just make a few comments and answer any questions about the structure, the placement, or anything else about the property.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weil. Mr. Levy, go ahead.
It's William Levy. I'm the architect for Mr. Weil, and there were some design challenges to this site, as it is the smallest, well, probably the smallest lot in Fairfield, and also a corner lot, which made it a little bit more difficult to deal with the setbacks. The idea for the house was to keep the exterior walls of the house outside of the setbacks to the rear property and the side, so it doesn't affect the homes there. The entry is located in the rear of the house. We wanted to create 1 staircase as opposed to 2, for 1 being for the entry and 2 being for the UI platform. So we created the stair in the back and wrapped around the deck on the side for the UI platform. The placement of the driveway is located on the right-of-way street, which makes an easier transition from the street to the house. With the current driveway on French, obviously French is very tight, so we thought moving the driveway to the side would be better. The 49% lot coverage is 1,103 square feet. A normal lot size at 20% coverage is 1,875, so we're obviously well below that. And if it was a conforming lot, our lot coverage would only be 12%. The 5.3 foot setback at French Street is only at the corner of the house. You'll see the upper 2 floors are twisted from the main ground floor and first floor. So it's not a great protrusion in that direction. On the first floor, we're set back 10 feet off of the property line, and the rear and the side are 5 feet to the walls. It's the deck. In the rear, the deck is even set off 5 feet. So we pushed the house towards French and we pushed it towards the right of way to try to keep it as much off the property lines as possible. The UI deck is creating the 1.5 foot setback. So that's why it's there. We tried to design a home that fits the needs of the client and stays within the plan and conservation development of the town while creating something that has least impact on the surroundings. It will be FEMA compliant. We are removing the non-FEMA compliant danger of a house right now that is currently more over the setbacks than we're asking for. After reviewing the design with the clients, we started to contact planning and zoning to try to, fit the house, fit both needs of the house, the clients and zoning. So we went back and forth. We started with a bigger footprint, more square footage. We brought it down. We tried to get it to an equal, client happy, zoning board happy. So I hope that's what we did today. Most of the lots on French, Pine Creek, and Fairfield Beach Road are over 50% lot coverage. So we're staying under that. The square footage of the house itself is only 1556. Just for comparisons, 106 French Street is a 3,000 square foot lot at 39% lot coverage. And if that house was on 86 French Street, it would be at 52% lot coverage. If our house was on 106 French Street, it would only be at 36% coverage. Currently below 39, which is what they have. And on a regular lot, it would be under 12%. So we're not trying to build, a monster house on the site. We're just trying to make a house that the client will love. Any other questions or comments?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Levy. Mr. Weil, do you have anything further?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if the board has any questions for either you or Mr. Levy. Yes, Jane, go ahead.
I'm looking at the survey and I'm looking at the grid. What is the FAR? I don't see it.
The Beach District doesn't have an FAR, does it?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can't answer that. Maybe Mr. Decker would be
Chairman?
able to.
You mind if I answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
Our beach district regulations do not have an FAR, Jane.
Okay.
It's, the lot coverage is, a maximum of 20%
Mhm.
for existing, and you're permitted only 2 stories, in the district. So technically, that second story represents the FAR.
Okay, and then, okay, one more question, which is the height.
Mhm.
The definition of height, I'm looking at in the regs, that if it's a flat roof, the measurement's taken to the roof deck. So I'm not clear why you're showing it. I mean, you're choosing to measure the height where the roof is sloped, but more than half the roof looks like is flat.
Currently, the more sloped part of the roof
Yeah,
is 51% of the roof. So you're allowed to take the height to that. The flat part of the roof is smaller than the sloped part of the roof. So
okay.
the height is in compliance.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it really flat? The flat part? I mean,
It's got some pitch to it. It's,
Yeah.
you don't,
so, yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Hearing no questions, now I want to find out if there's anyone that wishes to speak to this application. Whether you are either in favor or against, please give me your name and the position that you have. Mr. Lamberti?
I'm opposed to it.
Put your address first.
Okay.
75 French Street.
All right, hold on. Attorney Green?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Are you
my name
opposed, or I assume you're opposed?
I am.
Okay, I'm just taking a roll call right now.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Solinger? Are you in favor or opposed? You're still mute. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, you're opposed. All right. Anyone else?
Deborah Cavacci, 106 French Street. We're opposed.
Kavachi, okay. All right.
Laura
anyone-
Inserto,
Laura Inserto, okay.
89 Pine Creek.
Yep, and in favor
I'm
or opposed?
opposed. I'm opposed.
Okay, anyone else? I think I see Ms. McGuire.
Yes, Valerie McGuire, 69 Pine Creek Avenue, opposed, and Attorney Green is representing me.
Are you gonna want to speak in addition to your attorney? Or are you gonna let Attorney Green do his job?
I'm going to let him do his job. It wasn't clear to me whether or not I needed to speak at this point, so I just wanted to do that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Not going to play favorites. I'm going to go with the first person I called and start from there and go in the order that I wrote down. So, Mr. Lamberti, you have the floor. Give me your name and address again for the record.
Okay, name Donald Lamberti, 75 French Street. I'm diagonally across from the property. I just feel like the building, it's a small lot. I feel like the building is too big and the setback at 1.2 feet is much, much too small. It's not appropriate for the lot coverage and lot size.
I think your wife wants you to say something else.
Something about the 3 levels of deck is too much.
Okay, all right. I'm not reading lips. I'm just,
You're right. Thank you, thank you.
I felt that there was a nudging there. So,
There was.
all right, okay. Thank you, Mr. Lamberti. I'll now turn it to Attorney Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And once again, Joel Green, representing Valerie McGuire, who lives at 69 Pine Creek Avenue. It sounds like there are a number of people who are going to speak to this application, so I'll try not to take up a lot of time, but just a few matters that I'd like to get to right out front. I note that the applicant talked about other properties in the neighborhood and if this house were on other properties in the neighborhood. And I think as this board recognizes, but I have to state for the record that obviously is not a factor that this board should consider. Or what you have is a lot that is admittedly non-conforming as to size, and it is a small lot, but it has a home on it. And in fact, it was purchased about 3 months ago, the lot and the house, for $455,000. So by definition, it has value. And under the E&F case in Fairfield that you're all familiar with, it has economic value. It has a home on it. That home can be renovated. That home can be repaired. In fact, as I know you've recognized and I know you've seen many times, the house can be lifted to comply with FEMA. So almost by definition, there's no hardship as it's defined in the law in this instance. So what my client confronts here is that right at the moment you have a house that by zoning measures 11.5 feet in height, and under the drawings that the applicant has submitted, and I have a question about that, but I'll get to it in a moment. The height of the roof, and it looks pretty flat, but it's 37.5 feet tall. and the house has decks all around it. And I think that's probably why you have so many folks in the neighborhood who've appeared and are very concerned about this. The house is surrounded by decks. The setback is in part apparently for this deck to access the electric utilities, but the rest of it are just regular decks. And the house is moving from 10 feet to just 1.5 feet off the property line to my client. So my client is looking now at a house that is kind of on the other side of the hedge, other side of the fence, that's, you know, just 12 feet high, that is going to suddenly be 37.5 feet high. And obviously so much closer. And with all that, there are decks on several levels overlooking my client's home and yard. So that's obviously not a happy prospect for my client. Now, this house can, as I indicated, the house can be renovated, it can be lifted. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done here, but this certainly cannot be done. You cannot have a variance in this instance because there is, again, once again, by definition, you have a legally existing non-conforming lot that may continue to be used. It has value, and therefore, by definition, there's no hardship. Now, the question I have is when I went through, and I had the same question that the board had regarding the flat roof, but the other issue that I'm confused by is if you look at the fourth page of the application, there's a site plan that shows you the drawings and the orientation of the new building. The grid that shows you the existing conditions and the proposed conditions shows that the height of the maximum height of a building or structure in the beach district, and I agree with Mr. Decker and his interpretation of the regulations, is 30 feet. The existing conditions are shown as 11.5 feet. So you see the grid on the site plan. And then it says proposed 30 feet. And I'm at a loss on that because if you look at the last page of the application, and I have it on another screen here, according to the architectural drawings, the actual height of the building is 37.5 feet. And for zoning purposes, if you are going to accept that argument that 49% of the 51% of the roof is sloped and therefore you use the midpoint of the sloped roof, that's shown on the design drawings as 34.5 feet. So right out of the box, the applicant is not asking, I didn't see it in the application that they were looking for a variance on height. And as far as I can tell, based on the drawings and based on the regulations as they're applied and based on the grid even that the applicant submitted, the house is not in conformity on height and they haven't requested a variance on that. So that even if you were to grant this, the project can't be built because they need additional variances. So I just wanted to bring that to the commission's attention. I may be missing something in how the measurement is done, but you know, I'll leave that to the applicant on rebuttal. But once again, my client, and I think everyone who you'll hear speak wants to be good neighbors, and this is a neighborhood in Fairfield, and I know that it's a friendly neighborhood, and I'm down there running all the time, and but this, I think, is just, I think you're seeing all these people because this is just too much. And there's been a lot of development in that neighborhood, and you don't usually see quite this many people coming out for just one home. So obviously there's a lot of concern. I would suggest that granting, even if you were to grant this, I don't think you're doing the applicant a service here because this would never withstand an appeal. There's obviously considerable interest in it. And I think the applicant can do other things. And I think that everyone would be happy to see the property redeveloped and would welcome the applicant as neighbors, but not with this particular kind of home. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I want to thank you for your, patience and attention.
Thank you, Attorney Green. Our next is Ms. Solinger. Could you just give your address again for the record?
Hi, I'm across the street at 85 French Street. And I was just looking at the, after talking to our neighbors and stuff, the like excessive and as well as setbacks as well. So size, I guess.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Solinger. Ms. Cavacci, where are you?
Here I am. I'm back.
Okay, go ahead. Could you just give your address again, just so it's,
Yes, we're at 106 Front Street.
go ahead.
We're on the other side of the street. So I think that I did write a letter to the board. I don't know if you received it, an email.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And there were two things that we cited in there. One was the lot coverage, and we did forward that to the owner, so they are aware of what we said. And also, I was perplexed by the house, the location of the front of the house being at the back of the house. So when you were going down French Street, and it is on a corner, that you would be looking at the back of the house rather than the front of the house. And I guess I thought the presentation of the house would be nicer for us, all of the neighborhood, if we were looking at the front. I know that might be an aesthetic thing, but it is, as you heard, it is a close-knit community, and I wondered about that. But those were the two things that I had reservations about, and I don't know if my husband's here too. If he has something he wants to say, here, Bill.
Hi, Bill Cavacci, 68 French Street. 106 French Street, sorry. Okay. My only concern is what's already been stated, but I think it's very, very important to restate in terms of the size of this lot is, as stated, 2,250 square feet. The house the footprint is going to be 49%, so almost half of it. So that's going to leave a little over 1,100 feet or so of uncovered ground. Now we're in a flood zone. We're at the beach area. Environmentally, to me, that does not make any sense at all. When we built our house, we couldn't put a paved driveway as is required because you don't want to cover more ground than you have to. So you go with gravel and so forth. But here's a situation where you're going to have this very small piece of property all of a sudden with half of the property covered by a home, and then a very small amount. And you could get into, you're going to put the galleys for water and so forth. I don't even know if they have room to put all of that. I mean, the size of the house does not match the extreme smallness of the lot, and environmentally, that's my greatest concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cavacci. Thank you, Ms. Cavacci. Next is Ms. Insergo.
Yes, thank you very much. And congratulations, Andy, on your purchase. I want to say that I do want to be very neighborly. You and I will be the closest in this building. And that's exactly what it's going to turn out to be, as a building in my vision. And I can't deny you wanting to build your home, and I wish you all the best in doing that. I just do feel too, though, that the lot coverage is in excess of, what I think anybody in the surrounding home area is comfortable with. I don't see where it's a hardship that should be applied for. It's not really a hardship because the footprint that's there is certainly ample to building, I think, your dream home. But to go to 49% just seems like it encroaches very closely on all the neighbors. Right now, I actually have to move my fence back because the existing homeowner had a shed that was sitting on my property. So I'm in the process of getting my own property resurveyed based on that. So I just feel like it's just a little too close and maybe zero privacy with all those porches. But, again, that's your desire through your architect. But I did want to at least represent from my standpoint how I feel I'm going to be affected.
Thank you, Ms. Inserto. Could you just restate your address for the record?
Oh, sorry, 89 Pine Creek Avenue.
Thank you. All right, just in case, is there anyone else that I missed? I know, Ms. McGuire, you had Attorney Green present for you. So I think he covered the points for you well. And is there anyone else? All right. I didn't miss anyone. Mr. Weil, you and Mr. Levy have an opportunity to respond and address comments that are in opposition. To make it smooth, you have basic 3 areas that you need to address. You have, the setbacks, the size of this building, the height. Although the height is, you can answer questions on that. There's no variance request for a height. Attorney Green put that out as warning, but there's no height variance. But if you wanted to comment on that, because there was a question from a board member, you're welcome to do so. So do your best to focus on the points we were raised. I know there was several of them, but they have a common theme. So thank you. Go ahead. Who's going to go? Mr. Wiley, you want to take a first crack and let Mr. Levy clean up? I think that might be a good idea.
Okay. Basically, regarding the lot size, most of the excess that we're looking for is not at the ground level, so it should have no effect on the environment of the area. As I mentioned when I spoke earlier, that part of it is the first floor overhanging the driveway. It would be 11 feet off the ground, and the rest of the lot size is basically a little bit from the turns of the second and third floor, which are many feet off the ground, and the staircase that would go to the front, I should say our only door, door into the house. The deck that is around that. The actual footprint of the house is within the lines. It looks like to me that they're in the lines that are allowed by the setbacks.
Mr. Wiley, you're saying lot size, but I think you mean lot coverage, right?
I guess. I'm sorry, these are not terms that are really.
That's how I took it. I think the board took it that way, but I'm just making sure the record reflects that, because you're talking about lot size, but you're talking about a structure on a building, so that has nothing to do with lot size. That's lot coverage. Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
I can't comment on the height. I'm going to leave that to Mr. Levy. And I guess I think I'm going to leave the rest to Mr. Levy.
Okay. Well, that's why you have a consultant, a professional too. So, well, I don't want to cut you off. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Levy.
In terms of the height, the 34.5 feet, when you raise a structure, you get additional height to it. So that is why there is no variance for the height, because it is in compliance. In regards to the lot coverage, as Andy mentioned, most of the coverage is deck, so it won't be necessarily impacting the environment. There is 100 square feet, which would be over the driveway, and then there's 45 square feet at the front point that comes forward, and 12 square feet at the back point. So it's mostly deck that is impacting the lot coverage and not the building itself. The square footage of the house obviously is 1556, which is far smaller than most houses in Fairfield, especially in this area. In returning comments to the current house, the lawyer, Mr. Green, I don't know if you've been to the house lately, but you could probably push it over with your hands. So having that existing structure rebuilt or raised or any of that is really a non-discussion. It's a mess. So the property has value, but the house has no value. I think that's it.
Okay.
Can I say anything, Kevin?
No,
Or
no,
Serta?
no, nope,
Okay.
no, Mr. Serto, that's not how it works. The applicant gets the last bat. Since they're the applicant, they're the ones that have to prove to us the grant of variance. They get the last word.
It's not, it was just a question regarding the condition of the existing house. You can't ask
No.
about that? Okay.
No, it's not, there's no questions. It's you speak either in favor, opposition, and the applicant gets the last word. We're familiar with the house because many of the board members drive by it and are very familiar with the house. So we know the general condition of it. We're not inspecting inside, but we know the general condition of it as well. So, all right. Thank you, Mr. Wiley. Thank you, Mr. Weil. Thank you, Mr. Levy. I will close the hearing now on 86 French Street. We'll be taking this up. The people, thank you for your comments as well. And of course, you're all welcome to stay on, muted, of course, and you can listen in when we do discuss 86 French Street in a little bit. Our next item that we have is number 5107 Newton Street, map 139, parcel 280, petition of TJK Builders, LLC for a variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce two street lines and rear line setbacks from 30 feet, 22 feet, and 30 feet, currently 18.7 feet, 16 feet, and 40.1 feet, proposing 18.3 feet, 16 feet to house, 6.4 feet to stairs, and 25.3 feet to rear stairs, and section 5.2.5 to increase the lot coverage and total floor area from 20% and 40%, currently 15.7% and 27.1%, proposing 30% and 50%, permission to construct additions, front porch, rear stairs, and to make the dwelling FEMA compliant, premises A zone. And who's presenting this? Is this Ms. Galati, Aaron Galati? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I was on this meeting last month. We had a majority, but not a super majority. And so just to recap, this is a legal non-conforming lot compounded by having two street lines because it is a corner. If you recall, we currently live across the street at 88 Newton Street. This property, 107 Newton Street, is an abandoned house that's had some issues over the years. So we've had full neighborhood support, even last month, with our larger plans that we had drawn. We very much care about keeping within the neighborhood. We're not substantially affecting the comprehensive zoning plan as it's a single family residence. We do want to bring it into FEMA compliance. The only issue that really was, well, the only issue that was raised at the last meeting was the floor area ratio. We were requesting 60%. We heard the, the two board members' concern over that, and we went back, and the architect reduced the third floor down to, now we're requesting a variance for 50%. I just want to reiterate the point that because we're trying to stay within the character of the neighborhood, it's sort of hurting us on the floor area ratio because we're not raising the house. So the garage, even though we're flood zone and it's uninhabitable, is counting towards our floor area ratio. So if we were to take that out, the floor area ratio really is just over 42%, which, we don't feel is in excess of the neighborhood. Given that that was really the only concern that we had, that's all I really have to speak to it. I hope you'll recognize that we did take your concerns seriously, went back to the drawing board and made a substantial change to the house.
All right, thank you, Ms. Galati. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Galati? Any questions? Okay. Does anyone wish to speak in favor or against this application, 107 Newton Street? Let me know your name and your position, please. Okay, hearing no one wanting to speak, I'm going to close the hearing on 107 Newton Street. Mr. Lottie, thank you very much. We'll be taking this up soon.
Thank you.
Our next item is 463 Davis Road, map 47, parcel 146. Petition of Robert C. and let R. Darkin for variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4 to reduce the street line setback from 40 feet, currently 30.9 feet, proposing 35.6 feet, and section 5.2.5 to increase lot coverage from 15%, currently 21.5%, proposing 21.6%. Permission to construct a one-story addition in place of a side open porch, premises R3 zone. And who's presenting?
Yeah, hi, my name is William Neary from Neary Modeling. I'm the agent for the Darkins.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
hear me?
Yep, your video's not on.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Already?
Oh, no, I was looking, Levy. Okay, Neary.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, yeah, my name's Bill Neary. I'm the contractor for the Darkins, and I'm acting as our agent too. We're looking to build a small one-story addition over the existing deck entry room on the side of the house. The hardship is we're a legal non-conforming dwelling in an R3 residential zone. The minimum legal size lot is 20,000 square feet, which is less than half of where we're at 9,380 square feet. The minimum street line setback is 40. The existing dwelling sits at 30.9 feet. We're only seeking a small, modest one-story addition that sits back at 35.5 feet from the street right now. And that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neary. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Neary? There's all nods of the head no, so no, nothing to put you on the spot, Mr. Neary.
Okay.
Now we'll see if there's anyone who wishes to speak to this. If there's anyone that has any comments on 463 Davis Road, whether you are in favor or against it, please let me know by giving me your name and your position. Hearing none, I'm going to close the hearing on 463 Davis Road. Thank you very much, Mr. Neary.
Thanks. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Too. Our next item that we have is number 7. And since sometimes people just sign off quickly, this is going to be the last item for the public hearing because number 8, 5545 Park Avenue has been withdrawn, and number 9, 10088 Harbor Road has been continued. So number 7, 44 Turney Road, map 139, parcel 360. Petition of David S. and Carolyn Houghton for variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to increase lot coverage from 20%, currently 21.3%, proposing 20.8%. Permission to reconstruct fire damaged 2-car garage with storage above premises A zone. I think I saw Mr. Houghton or someone. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Dave Houghton. Thank you. I currently reside at 44 Turney Road and have since 1995 with my family. The home was built in 1923, so 99 years old. But today I'm seeking approval, as you read, to rebuild a detached 2-car garage with storage above that was completely destroyed by a fire. After discussions with a contractor, an architect, and reviewing the survey, we're first planning to move the garage to fit within current setback rules. It was considered legal non-conforming prior, only 3 feet away from the property line. So we're plan to move the garage forward and are seeking a modest increase to lot coverage to 20.8%.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Houghton. We see the sign-offs and your file that was presented as well. Does the board have any questions, Mr. Houghton? Okay, hearing no questions. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this application, 44 Turney Road, Whether you are in favor or against it, please give me your name and state your position. Hearing none, I'm going to close the hearing now on 44 Attorney Road, and we'll be taking that up very shortly. We're going to close now the public hearing because the next two matters, 5545 Park Avenue is withdrawn and 1088 Harbor Road has been continued. So public hearing for February 3, 2022 is now closed. The Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of Fairfield. Now, does any of the board members need a break, or are we good to go? Thumbs up if we're good to go. Katie, good. Terry, good. All right. Yep, they got nods in the head. Okay, we'll reconvene our working session now. There's going to be the order of voting. I'm going on what my screen is, and if people click off and the screen moves, I'm sticking with the same order the entire hearing. So on the upper right of my screen is, oh, it just moved a little bit, but it still kept Brian as first. Then it's Jane, Katie, Terry, then myself. Okay, so I'll call them in order. Continued docket number 7, 250 Pequot Avenue. That has been continued to March. General docket number 1, 401 Springer Road, petition of Ms. Cavalier for a 1.5-story, 1-car garage with storage above. Entertain a motion to approve. I saw your lips move, but I didn't hear it. So Jane's moved on that. Is there a second?
Second.
And was that Terry?
Yes.
Cut out.
Terry, this is the first time since Brian's been on that he's been squeezed out of moving for a matter or a second.
You gotta be quick.
So, okay, let's discuss this. 401 Springer Road.
I think it's a completely reasonable request.
Spoke to the neighbor at issue. The other neighbor is on the other side, so probably a little bit of a misunderstanding as to what they're actually seeking. So, and it is pretty reasonable. They're supposed to have 43,000 square feet, and they have 29,000. So,
yeah.
And you should put a garage where the driveway is. I think it's a good option. All right, bring it to a vote. Brian.
Yep.
Jane.
Yes.
Katie.
Yeah.
Terry.
Yes.
All right, that passes. That's been granted. Number 2, 163 Oakville Road. It's petition of Phoenix Surgicals LLC. Attorney Fitzpatrick presented this. It's to renovate the existing garage to have a second floor. So they needed a setback issue and a parking variance. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Terry got you, Katie. So.
Yeah.
Next time, get ready. Next one, number 3.
I'm ready.
Let's have discussion on this one.
I think it's a reasonable request. I don't think it's outside what would be acceptable. I know that it's still a reduction in spaces, but my big concern when they do that is if they're going to affect any handicap spaces, especially around a medical facility. But that's not going to be the case, and they showed enough evidence to me that that there's enough parking at enough times of the day to support the area, support the businesses.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it's hard to have a lot of customers with only like 600 square feet of an office.
And if you count all the parking on the property and be missing just 2 spaces, it's such a small percentage. Then if you just zero in on the garage, it sounds like you're only giving them 1/3 of what they need, when in fact it's really plenty of parking.
To be technical, I think they only need 1.4 spaces, but I don't know. I've never seen a car that's only a 0.4.
Smart car.
All right, we'll bring it to a vote. Brian.
Yep.
Jane.
Yes.
Katie. Terry.
Yes.
I say yes. That's been granted. Number 6. Not number 6. Number 3. 6 Borowski Road. It's a petition of Borowski Drive LLC. Attorney Mr. Papageorge presented this, and it's to allow the existing set of stairs on the open front porch. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Jane seconds.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, just so you know, board members, Jane's doing it right. She's saying Jane seconds, so the record is nice and clear for Jody. When Jody puts it down later and is trying to figure it out, it's it's a gold star to Jane.
I rely on the distinctiveness of my voice.
I know the voices, and I call it out as well. But just so we know. All right, let's have discussion on that.
I remember then we voted on this when he wanted to subdivide it. And at that time, I know this house, didn't we approve like a whole addition off the back as well? I guess he didn't build it, which I'm glad about because it's a nice little house. I have to say I told you so, because I knew at the time that the driveway was not going to be permitted where you originally showed it because it was too close to the corner. So I'm not surprised that it ends up the way it does and it affects the front steps. But nevertheless, I think we have to approve it because it's the only way it makes architectural sense right now.
Well, I think, we have a small lot here, and that's why we approved the work, undersized lot, and it's Papageorge has built many houses, and he's not one to ask for forgiveness, and we appreciate that. So, and I know he won't make it a habit of it if he wants to continue to come back to the board for things. So there's never good to make that a habit. But it's reasonable. It looks good. It looks much better facing that side road than going on the main road. Definitely. So
agreed.
All right, let's bring it to a vote. Brian.
Yep.
All right, Jane.
Yes.
Katie.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
I say yes. That has been granted. Okay, number 4. It's 86 French Street. Petition of Kathleen and Andrew Weil. They also had Mr. Leetney, who was their architect, who presented with them. And it is a couple different variances, but they want to construct FEMA compliant 2-story single-family home with open front porch and balconies. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Terry moves.
Is there a second?
Terry moves. Second, Terry.
Okay.
I
I know
learned
what you
our
meant,
lesson
but
well, Mr. Chairman.
I had to do that for the record. I knew what you meant, but I had to do it for the record. Okay. Now, remember, we had multiple people speaking, just so we had Lamberti, Attorney Green spoke, Salinger, Cavacci, and Cerdo. Attorney Green spoke for Ms. McGuire. So let's have some discussion on this one.
I'll open this one up. Mostly because I have a question from Matt regarding the point made by the attorney for regarding the presenter regarding height. Do they get that leeway when it comes to the FEMA compliance?
Yes.
I just want to set on the record by him.
Yes.
All right, because I'm looking around the neighborhood, looking at the aesthetic of what's down there. With all deference to the objections, I don't think that it's considerably outside the scheme of the neighborhood. I think it's an attractive design. And, the 49% is what it is, but like the gentleman said, it's not considerably outside the existing footprint when you look at the base of the house.
Any other?
May I ask Mr. Decker a question? The 49% applies when it's a flat roof?
No, the lot coverage is any portion of the structure that is above 12 inches over the existing grade. as you look down on the property from above.
So now my question is about the roof slope.
Oh, the slope, I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah.
you said the lot coverage.
Yeah, the applicant said that only 49% of the roof is flat.
So
it
the
doesn't
way that we
count?
measure, well, it's not that it doesn't count. The way that we take the average height for a roof line is the distance between the main ridge line and the main eave line. You take the midpoint of that.
Right.
In order for the flat roof not to be considered the main eave line, the sloped portion has to be greater than 50% of the overall roof footage, square footage or width. And in this case, this the way that he designed it, the pitched portion of the roof is larger than the flat portion of the roof. And your comment earlier about the roof technically not really being flat is correct by about a couple of inches.
Right.
It's not your typical, 3, 4, 5 over 12. It's probably 2 or 3 inches or 4 inches
Yeah.
in slope, but
So
calculation.
hypothetically, if that so-called flat portion, if he dropped the eave down to, so it was like a 4 and 12, then that would be considered the higher roof and it would be measured halfway up to that?
No, because that is, again, it's the overall measurement of the roof itself, because what it is that the sloped portion of the roof
Yeah.
is a larger portion of the overall size of the roof.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if what we're calling flat
Yep.
actually had a slope of like 4 and 12,
Yeah,
would we
this
be
there wouldn't be a
measuring,
question.
but would we be measuring height to that?
No, it'd be measured the same side. The same measurement would be where it is today on the drawing that he has,
Okay.
regardless of the flat side or not.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Any other discussion? All right, I have a little comment on it, and I think this is a property that the way the size of it, and they'd have to, any work they would have to do, they'd have to be FEMA compliant. So I think they get some leeway, but a lot of this are these overhanging decks. A lot of this 49% of going up are these overhanging decks, and that's what's intrusive to the neighbors, because they have to go up because of FEMA, and then they're asking to be out there. So I think that is a little bit too much, and I think this property warrants some leniency. It's not, so, but I think we might be going too far on this at 49. When I had it, I circled 49%. It was the first thing I circled. I know the area, I know the lot, I know the building. So that's my point, that I think we're going just a little too far, but I do agree that this property does get some leniency.
Yeah.
I think in deference to that, just, and someone else can check me on it. I believe the decks were only raised by the final commenter, who would be the closest in proximity to the existing house. I believe the others were height, size, and aesthetic was mentioned, with their backside facing the street. But
I understand, but when you're talking structure, a deck stands out to you as a structure coming close to you as well. I mean, the deck gets closer to your property.
Yeah.
So that's I think that was the point that I took of general. This is just a little bit too massive for what the neighbors want.
And that roof, the 49 to 51% is like, it might as well just be the whole thing, or flip the other way. I think it's pushing the envelope a little too far.
Well, that's
my opinion.
There's not a variance request for height.
I know, but the nominal effect is still a very big, tall building.
Right, but we can't grade on that curve for the vote, right?
No,
because that is the zoning requirement.
Right.
Yep.
But that's why they're asking for a
complying with
variance. Yeah. Right. but
All
there's
right.
other reasons that they need a variance, so.
And okay, let's bring it to a vote. Brian,
Yep.
Jane,
No.
Katie,
No.
Terry?
Yes.
I say no. That application is not granted. Number 5, 107 Newton Street, petition of TJK Builders. Ms. Delotti presented the application. She's going to hopefully be in that house. And it's to construct additions, front porch, rear stairs, and FEMA compliant. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
3 seconds.
Thank you, Katie. All right, discussion.
Reasonable request.
They were at, I voted in favor to it last time. They were at 61.5%. Came back and tightened it up by 11.5%. So
They did
It's
Jane's
still
favorite thing and
over.
sharpened their pencil.
Yeah, but it's still over, and the argument that, you know, they're being penalized because it's a garage, it's sort of, it doesn't matter what's inside, it all has to, it's all bulk. And I think it's still too big for the neighborhood.
You know, I thank you very much for listening to our comments and reducing the size.
Yeah.
I do think it's in keeping with the neighborhood now. I think it's reasonable. My 2 cents. And especially because they have the approval of all the neighbors. You know, the neighborhood likes it.
okay, well, let's bring it to a vote. Brian,
Yep.
Jane,
No.
Katie,
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
I say yes. 4-1. That application has been granted. Number 6 is 463 Davis Road, the darken application, 1-story addition in place of the open side porch. Mr. Neary presented this, the contractor. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Jane seconds.
Thank you, Jane. Discussion?
It's a reasonable request.
It's very modest and just fine.
Yeah, it's gonna look nice.
And you know, I mean, you're barely gonna know it happened after it's done.
Right.
Unless you live on that street and had walked your dog by it and ridden your bike by it and ran by it, like I have.
And you still probably wouldn't know.
And I probably won't notice it after it's done. So, all right, Brian,
Yep.
Jane,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
I say yes. And I know we're going to be ending the finding items. Number 8, 5545 Park Avenue was withdrawn. Number 9, 1088 Harbor Road has been continued. Our last item for business is number 7, 44 Turney Road. Mr. Houghton presented his application to reconstruct the fire damaged 2-car garage and storage above. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry. Discussion?
Give the man his garage back.
Yeah.
Jane got the gold star, in my opinion, with the earlier, obviously stating it correctly on the record that Jane seconds the move. And I think Mr. Houghton gets the gold star because he went from 21.3 down to 20.8.
Yeah, he's improving.
To rebuild a home. So very reasonable request. So any other comments? All right, Brian,
Yep.
Jane,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
I say yes. That's been granted. Thank you all. We'll see you in March. Be careful tomorrow on the roads. And we're closing the hearing. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Take care, everybody.
Stay safe.